Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Thanks for dropping by my weekly workshop, coming to you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. For those new arrivals to our community, the weekly workshop features a compilation of my content from the last 7 days, including, but not limited to, inspiration for would-be side hustlers and full-time giggers, tool and gear reviews, and finding financial and lifestyle freedom through entrepreneurship. And also, if you prefer your content of the video variety, you can find it all at toolmantim.co. Thanks for taking the time to have a listen, and with that, let's dive into this week's edition of the Weekly Workshop. Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. I'd like to say it's Sunday night, but it isn't. It's Monday night for a special edition of Talkin' Tools. And I've got a good one for you tonight. We've got Hawkins from Chickenhawk Farmstead coming on here. I'll bring him up in just a second. It was one of those things. I did not know anything about solar. I kept getting asked questions about solar. I want to know about solar. So I figured, hey, let's bring on somebody who has lived it for a lot of years, has figured it all out, or at least is starting to, and he seems to know quite a bit about solar. So I'm going to bring Hawkins on here. Just give me a second. We'll bring it up as a double here. There we go. Going? How are you, Hawkins?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here, man.
Perfect. Well, thanks for dropping by. I know we had some serious technical difficulties last night, but we always work our way through. So tell me a little bit about who you are and where you come from and your backstory a bit.
Well, I grew up been here all my life in Kentucky, and when I was 17, I went to the military, did 20 years there. I did communications for a bit, some ground surveillance stuff, military police, all the fun stuff. Been homesteading, let's see, I guess around almost 10 years now. Got started with Jack Spirko, started listening to him. Just by happen chance found his channel, and that got me interested. And then as he went through all of his phases and the different ones, I started going through the same ones because they were all interesting things. So that was good. Got married, I think, I hope I don't get this wrong, 7 years ago. And she's been on board with a lot of the homesteading stuff, like raising chickens and, some of the preparedness stuff, storing of food, water, fuel, and then backup, sources of heat and electricity. Which solar itself, I guess I got my first little kit about 5 years ago, and has just developed that from one system to the next as I went. Oh, and I just retired in January from the military, so that was good.
Oh, okay. I was going to say retire. Man, you're awfully young to retire, but that's all right. So let's back up a little bit. I'll ask you then. So, which is cool because I'm kind of in the same position, but how important is it when you're homesteading into preparedness, all of this, to have a spouse who supports you? I know I blindsided you with that question, but you mentioned it, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, because there was a lot of times I was stretching myself thin. We do have 3 little ones, 5, 3, and 4 months now. So I got to, early on, you just want to run at it full force and just go, 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 go. And, yeah, when you have those little ones, you really got to rein it back and just pick 1 or 2 projects a year to kind of focus on and then develop from there. Because, yeah, I was doing that first couple of years, I was doing 10, 15 projects a year or something. And, the family's got to be there too. So it's definitely a juggle. And the best thing is when you can make it a family event.
Did you ever get in over your head and start too many projects and not be able to finish any?
Yes, I have. Well, now that we moved, it's not as bad, but yeah, the old place I had quite a few unfinished projects. And yeah,
I know all about that. So
you have half built this, half built that.
So you're a fellow YouTuber as well. How long you been doing that? And tell me a little bit about your channel.
I guess YouTube, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. I got in right before they changed the rules on monetization. But it was basically in the get-go just recording what I was doing. I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, let me record it. And then, once again, I'll refer to Jack a lot because I do listen to his podcast every day. But, it takes a lot longer to do a project when you're recording it. I found that out quite a few times. If you want to try to do it right, but it's fun because, like I said, I try to get the little ones involved. They'll help me on projects, and they love being in the YouTube videos with me.
You always seem to do well.
I think one of the best things is hearing them say. I was going to say one of the best things is hearing them say Chickenhawk Farmstead for the first time.
I love it. The kids go crazy for YouTube, don't they? My kids just love. I don't know what it is. Like when they know Dad's a YouTuber, they think it's the coolest thing ever. I don't know. Even though we're big geeks, right?
Oh yeah. And I get called out all the time because she does such a better job than me. She'll talk to the viewers and ask them questions, which is good for the commenting. And
people love kids too. They just, I don't know. And I know I was looking, you had a bunch of shorts there. And I think one of your biggest ones, I think it was a short, was where you spray painted the parts pink.
Yeah. Yeah. She actually sleeps with that. The older one. So.
I love it. I don't know, something about, I know it is what it is. And, but daddies and daughters, there's something special there, isn't there?
Oh yeah. They both get jealous when one can't be in the video and the other one is. But it gives us, a little bit of time to hang out and do something.
Sorry, I know we got a little bit of a lag. I'll try not to talk over you. I try to keep myself quiet if I can, but I don't know if you know Joseph or not, but he's from Millis Construction. He's got his own channel too. And he says, yeah, my son loves to tell everyone that we meet that I'm a YouTuber. So yeah, they just love it, don't they? So I see
that's one of the best parts, especially because they're proud of you for it.
And it's cool. Hey, I love that they're proud for you. And so I see, I always go back through. I watch a lot of your videos anyway. I loved your chainsaw review video, and I went back through. I always try to refresh a little bit. But I seen you seem to be in a ton of different projects, like homestead related stuff. I seen you made biltong a while back, raising chickens, mead making. So what are you doing right now, or what are you learning right now?
The biggest thing is the necessities, I guess, right now, because since we recently moved, it's been a lot of projects where I've just built a 10-foot by 70-foot deck. Now I'm building a lean-to, doing the electrical work in my building, getting all that ran. So right now it's projects out of necessity, but they're great skills to have.
Did you make any mistakes or do anything wrong?
Blew quite a few breakers, and on the construction of the deck, there's some things that I would do differently. But when I was doing it, the biggest thing to me was getting it done and done good, I guess, if that makes sense. Because I was like, do I want a perfect deck or do I want a deck? And that's a question I think more people need to ask sometimes. That way they'll get things done. I'd rather have something than have nothing and not have it be perfect.
Absolutely. A lot of times people let waiting for the perfect to get in the way of doing something decent. Hey. All right. So we brought you on to, I know we got a little lag there. Sorry guys, but we brought you on to talk about solar. So the first question I got for you is, what kind of skills does anyone need to build a solar system?
Well, I mean, honestly, it comes down to if you can strip a wire and thread a bolt is the easiest ones. But if you know some basic electrical and you're comfortable with it, that's one of the big ones, is being comfortable around it. So you're not scared or, and then mechanical, it doesn't really take a lot of specialized skill at all. I mean, you can get into the soldering and all that. But yeah, if you, like I said, some very basic electrical and very basic mechanical skills, and you're good to go.
So when you first started, I guess, like, what kind of skills did you build on? Like you say wire stripping, mechanical, that kind of stuff, but do you need to, everybody's got to start somewhere, right? So where did you start with the solar? What was your first steps into it?
Well, as far as like actually doing it, I went out and bought the Harbor Freight solar kit. I watched quite a few videos on it. And as long as you understand the method of solar, the easiest way for me to understand it is it's like water. It's got to flow, and a current. And so as far as the wiring goes, that makes that pretty easy. And like I said, the solar system from Harbor Freight, it's very simple, down to earth, almost completely plug and play. And that was really my first step to get that and make one and say, wow, it works. Get that confidence boost.
If I went out and bought the Harbor Freight solar system, what comes in it? Because I'm a complete idiot when it comes to solar. I kind of, I know some of the terms, but when you bring that home, what do you get in it? What do you need to add to it? What did you do with it?
That and similar with pretty much any of like the little 100-watt kits you can get off Amazon too. It doesn't have to be the Harbor Freight one specifically, but normally you'll get panels. You'll get the wires to hook the panels up to the charge controller. You'll get the charge controller, some clamps, and I think the Harbor Freight one still comes with like light bulbs. They're 12 volt that you can plug into the charge controller. But essentially, in order to run AC off of that, you're going to need an inverter and a battery. They're going to be your two items you're going to need to add to that to get something working.
So it obviously doesn't come with any storage like a battery or anything like that.
No, yeah, you like I said, you got to definitely get a battery, and you're going to have to go and get an AC DC or DC to AC inverter.
And what kind of battery do you look for? What do you go out to buy? Like just any old off the shelf, or is there certain ones you look for? What do you pick up?
Yeah, technically you could use any battery, but you're not going to get the lifespan. Their batteries is a 2-hour show. But the main thing is a deep cycle battery, because that's going to be how much of the battery you can actually use. And then, like a marine grade deep cycle battery, or a lot of people go with golf cart batteries because they're a little bit more rugged. But it really depends. Your battery is going to depend on your application. If it's a stationary unit, you can do a bunch of golf cart batteries. But if, they're usually 6 volt or 3 volt, I believe, instead of the odd 9. But they're going to be, you're going to need space for them, and they're heavy. But if you're just trying to get a little system, you can get one battery, which is lead acid. Still, you're talking about a lot of weight there. What are you looking at? 70, 80 pounds for one 12-volt battery. But, I mean, it can get some work done depending on what you're looking to do with it. That's your limitation.
So your first setup, the one that you got from Harbor Freight, what were you able to run off that, or what did you use it for when you first got started?
The first build, I got a little one of the storage totes that had the flaps on it, and I put my battery in there. Put a piece of wood on the top, I believe it was. Still got it out there. I should have got a picture for you. But I got that, and I put it put the charge controller. I mounted it to there. Beside that, mounted my AC and DC inverter, and then hooked my panels around the roof and ran them through the hole in the wall into that little, and that was a little power box. Mm-hmm. That's where it stored the energy, and I had my inverter, and it was this. I can't remember the amp hours of the battery, but it was just this your standard like 80 to 100 amp hour marine deep cycle battery, and I kept all my cell phone charged, all my tablets. I had a light in my sunroom that I wanted to leave on all the time when I came home at night, so it just ran off that. Just kind of using it, mm-hmm. because if not, it would just sit there and the battery would be topped off, and it would just shut off because it would, the power could come in, but there was nowhere for it to go. So that way I got a little bit of practical use charging all my phones and stuff off of it. So
most people kind of like, I don't know of course I don't have Harbor Freight here. We've got like Princess Auto, which is like a poor man's version of Harbor Freight. But if I went and got one of those kits, and got started, so what comes in it, and what do you use each of those pieces for? Because I'm kind of, thick.
So you got your solar panel. That's where that's obviously what you're going to put out and put in front of the sun. And that's the other thing you want to look at. The one thing I like about the Harbor Freight kit, and there's kits like it that you can probably get a hold of, is they have the 4 25-watt panels, as opposed to a lot of, so if you need to arrange them in different ways, it makes it more versatile having those 4 panels. Overall, it may be bigger than 100-watt panel, but that 100-watt panel has a fixed space it's going to take up. So that's your first thing is the solar panels, and then you got the little plug and play 2-prong to hook them all together. So that's already all wired for you. That's going to come down, and then it'll go into your charge controller. So they'll come from the panels to your charge controller. charge controller is what you hook to the battery. So you run a wire from that to your battery. And what that's going to do is it's going to look at the charge of your battery, and it's going to determine how much energy is in there, what the voltage is, and it'll charge it up. And usually a 12-volt battery, it's going to charge up to around 14 volts, and then it's going to know it's full. And that's why you need a charge controller, is it needs to say the battery's full, stop charging, or else you'll overcharge and damage your battery. So the charge controller kind of gives you that protection between, gives it. Plus, you're pulling in, I think the Harbor Freight ones are like 18 volt. So it brings that down from 18 volt to, I think, around 15 to put into the battery.
So then what happens when you hit your full, like when your battery has a full voltage at that point? Does the charge controller just shut off? Because you're still going to have like wattage, I guess, or what is it, wattage or voltage? I can't remember. Anyway, you're still going to have power coming from the solar panel, right?
Yeah.
So what does it do there?
Well, actually, the battery is what turns on the charge controller. You can hook your panels up, but the charge controller won't come on until it's hooked up to a battery. But it just stops the flow of power. It's kind of like turning the light. It'll turn like the light switch off. It stops the flow of power to the battery because your battery's full. So that's why. During the day, once your batteries are topped off, that's when you want to start using that extra juice if you have any like larger draw items. So that way you're not pulling that back all that energy out of your batteries and keeping them low too long. Because the battery's going to last longer the longer it's in a high state of charge.
So then does the solar panel just, I guess it just, if your charge controller is turned off, then your solar panel just kind of sits there like any other piece of glass, does it at that point?
Right. Yeah, it has the potential, but without those, the wires are not connected to anything, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So then, so we got a solar panel on the roof. We got our wires running down from our solar panel. We got them running into a charge controller and into a battery. So now I want to run, I want to be able to plug, well, maybe not a fridge, but I want to be able to say, charge my DEWALT batteries off that. So where do I go from there?
You're going to get you AC DC inverter.
Okay.
And you're going to hardwire that to your battery. And the best is you can actually buy the little battery terminals where it screws on and then it has the extra bolt sticking up, I think they're just called marine battery terminals. That way you can screw all your accessories on there without actually undoing the bolt that tightened to the battery itself. But so you'll hook up your inverter to the battery, and then you can turn your inverter on at that point to run whatever, depending on the size of your inverter. If you got a 100 watt, 1500 watt, 2000 watt, depending on the size of your inverter, depends on how much you can actually run off of it. So you'd want to look at whatever device you're wanting to run, and on the back of it, you'll see the wattage. And if it doesn't have the wattage, it should have the voltage and your amps. So I see. Say, like, do y'all run 110 up there, or is it 220 for y'all?
Nah, we're all 110. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right. Hey, we got that. We got that crazy. I always joke about the freedom units, but we got that crazy kilometers and Celsius and all that crap, right? So no, legit question, man. But for whatever reason, the power stays 110. I mean, we got 220 for stoves and things like that, but no, we're standard.
We have that too.
So I seen.
So so you just
go ahead.
I was gonna say with when you look on it and it tells your amps, you just take your amps and multiply it by the voltage. So if it's 1 amp at 110 volts, it uses 110 watts. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And so I know you talked about your charge controller, and I almost think I might have mistaken this, but you were talking the other day about how was your charge controller was undersized or something when you first started, or did I hear that wrong?
Oh, no, that was that's one of the things I was going to bring up. That was one of my big lessons learned. No, that was one of my big lessons learned, and it was crazy because I've looked in the solar so long and so much, and no one's ever mentioned it. And it's have you ever heard of do you know how to calculate the max rate for charging a battery?
No.
Like how many amps you can push into a battery?
You'll have to tell me. I don't.
Okay, because I've never heard of this either. You know, you can go out and buy a 30 amp, 50 amp charger to charge up your car battery, you know, jump starter style, but that can only go for a little bit. So it was I'm not going to get this perfect, but basically it's how many amp hours you have. Say you got 100 amp hour, a battery with 100 amp hour capacity. 10 amps is the most you want to charge that battery consistently, no more than. So if you have a battery bank that's 300 amp hours, you can go 30 amps.
Okay.
So my first battery bank, I had 4 batteries at 80 amp hours a piece. So that's
320.
Oh, well, no, I started off with 2. Started off with
Okay.
2 at 80. That's what it was. And that was 160 total amp hour. So that should be 16 amps is the most I wanted to charge them. But I got a 30 amp hour or 30 amp charger. So I was actually boiling the batteries over. And that's bad.
Oh. So can you step down a charge controller, or is it just always 30 amps? Is that the idea?
Depending on your charge controller, you can change the settings and lower them.
Okay.
And this one I can. So I could have done that, but I had no clue that I couldn't figure out why my batteries were boiling over. And I just happened to go on a Google hunt and a YouTube hunt and found that.
So when you say boil over, does that mean like they're off gassing, like you're getting some of that gas that they kick up and
No, like
shoot
I
out?
literally had acid on my floor.
Does that ruin the
My
batteries?
brand new concrete floor.
Yeah.
No, but it does. I mean, they did lose electrolytes at that point, so that's why they're not as good as they should be right now.
So if if say somebody wanted to start a 100-watt portable system, how much money does it cost? And would you say buy a pre-made or build your own?
If you're talking about the little 100-watt system, pre-made is usually the easiest, especially for a beginner. All in, I would say around $300. That's going to count your battery, a little inverter for it, and then the setup. I think the Harbor Freight set's still under $200. So, it's an easy place to start for a lot of people. I have an MPP Bluetooth charger controller. I used yes. I can't remember what it's called. It starts with the V, a blue one. It's probably the same one I got, and it's Bluetooth, and I can link to it. And you get all kinds of good readouts from it with the battery state, the charge rate, how much solar's coming in, everything.
So, how big of a system do you have now?
I still have my little 100-watt system, but I've done a lot of mods too. My other one's about a 1K system with, like I said, I got 4 deep cycle batteries, a 1500-watt inverter on it. And that's what actually, before the house was here and our building was already here, I could come down and run my computer, the internet, lights, get all that done with this little system.
So what can you, off a 1K system, is that just 1,000 watts, or can you actually draw a little more than that out, or how did that work?
Well, the way I've seen a lot of people when they refer to it, like how big the system is, that's how many panels you have. So I got about 1,000 watts worth of solar panels that charges into this system, and then keeps my batteries topped off, which is way overkill for the amount of batteries. When I did the calculations right, because you want to take your, I usually do 75% of whatever your solar panels are. So if I got 1,000 watts worth of solar panels, the max I think I'll ever get out of that is 750 after all my efficiency losses. By the time it runs through the wire, it goes to the charge controller, it goes to the battery, it comes out the inverter. All those areas are losses along the way. So after all that, about 750 watts. And then you want to multiply that by your sun hours, which that's going to vary depending on where you are. I got about 5 good sun hours on average a day.
Okay.
So you take your 750 times 5, and that's how many watt hours.
Oh, so is there any way to, and maybe this is way over, maybe I'm overthinking it, but is there any way to, so you say you basically got about a 25% loss there. Is there any way to mitigate that and cut those losses back, or is that just pretty much par for the course with solar?
Yes, you can. The higher quality, and there's an optimal size wire where if you get too big, you get other issues. But there's that perfect little wire size. So if you go with perfect wire size, the shortest length of wire that you could possibly run to get to your charge controller, the MPT. I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic, so I'm bad with some of the verbiage. But the MPTT charge controller, that's better than the WPM charge controllers. So you gain a lot there. Like I said, shorter run from charge controller to battery to inverter. The shorter you keep all those distances, the less losses and the least amount of connections.
Okay. So you can upgrade.
And it's going to vary. The 25% is my personal, this is, if I can get around here, I'll be happy.
Are you going to add more batteries?
I need to. When I did my calculation for the panels and everything, I actually need 10 batteries.
And how many do you have now?
And that's 4.
4. Okay. Yeah.
Because the system's not necessary at this point. Because now I have power in the building, so I don't really need the solar system anymore. It's just kind of a backup.
So can you add one battery at a time, or do you need to add them in pairs, or does it matter?
I'm running 24 volt, so yeah, I'd have to do 2 at a time. But you don't want to mix old and new, because the batteries have a max cycle life. So if you have batteries you've had for a year sitting there, you've cycled them, let's say 500 or not 500 times, 100 times, and you add a new set to them. Now they're going to drop down to the weakest in the link. See what I mean? So you don't want to mix. Like I saw even with Battleborn, which are some of the top lithium batteries out there, they don't suggest mixing anything than 6 months difference. Any more than that, they say don't mix them.
So you mentioned, I don't know if I have a question for it or not, but I'm going to ask you because I heard you mention it the other day about the difference between 12 volt and 24 volt. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was a big one. I've always wondered why you'd go 24 volt, because 12 volt stuff's easy to find and it's cheaper because it's everywhere. You can go down the truck stop and I can pick up a new inverter. Actually, right now, my 24 volt motor just crapped the bed on me the other day. So I'm going to have to get a new one, and I don't have another one, and I can't run to the store and buy one. So that's one of the major downsides of 24 volt systems, in my opinion, is the availability of those kind of items. The reason why I went 12 volt or 24 volt over 12 is my charge controller. It was around, I want to say $300. So not cheap, in my opinion. It can do 12 or 24, but that's another one of the calculations I learned when I built a bigger system. Yeah, as you get the bigger systems, you learn a lot more, it seems like. The charge controller it's a 100 over 30, which is something you'll see, and you'll see 100 over 30, 150 over 50, different things like that. And it's going to be your voltage and your amps. So mine is 100 over 30. So it can handle 100 volts at 30 amp and up to 30 amps coming in, but that's also going out. So if you do, what is that? So you do your 100 times 30. What's that? 3,000?
Yep.
I think my math's right there. All right. So my plan was I got 40 volt panels. So I was going to cross them to make it around 80 volts, which my charge controller would handle. And then I think my amps were like at 4 or 5. It was going to be able to handle up to 6 panels originally. Well, then I found out that's not going to work with the setup, because the 30 amps, it can only charge as well at only 30 amps. So I was running 30 amps at 12 volts, which is nowhere near the 1,000 watts that I got out there.
Right. 360, right? Something like that.
Yeah. See, there's a lot of numbers with solar. It's good to have a calculator around.
So if you double.
Anyways, I went 24 volts. Yeah, I can do 20. I can charge at 24 or 12 on this charge controller. So at 24 volts times your 30 amps, now I'm up to 720 watts that I could push into the battery at a time.
which is pretty damn close to the 750 that you're going to get out of 1,000-watt panels.
Exactly. So I was like, so that's why I dropped it down to from I bought 6 panels to put on the system. I'm only running 3 because once I've learned more, I realized that 6 was way too many.
So
and that's why solar can get expensive quick.
So if somebody is looking to get kind of just started and, you know, they don't really want to do the Harbor Freight thing, what would the next step be? Like, what could you use it for? And can you get stuff on Amazon that'll work for this, or where would you go for it?
Yeah. I mean, you can find you a panel. If you don't want to do 100, you could do 50, but get your solar panel, get you a charge controller. You can get them as cheap as 10 or $15 and get you a battery and an inverter, and you're cooking with solar. Not literally, but yes. And it's very simple. And like my first little setup that I had in that little tote box, I mean, I put 4 or 5 different gauges and monitoring devices, because you can buy these little monitoring devices that will tell you how many watts are flowing, and you can actually hook them up in different ways throughout it, so you can see how much power is coming from the panel, how much power is going to the battery, how much power is coming out of the battery. So on this one little box, you can hook up like, I think it's 5 different little monitors. And, you know, I'm big on data, so you can kind of see, okay, if I angle it this way or that way. And it just builds confidence as you hook each of those little devices up. And to me, that was the biggest thing of getting to the bigger system, is having that confidence.
So you said you got 5 hours of good sunlight a day. So is that kind of just like that straight south facing, or how do you calculate that without, I guess, sounding too technical, or how do you figure that out?
If you can actually look it up and pull charts up, kind of like your, you know, what zone you're in and stuff like that. They got the charts out there that tell you on average how many hours that you have. You know, if it rains for a week, obviously you're not going to have 5 hours each of those days, but it's on average of like where the sun's kind of like in the best angle for you, if that kind of makes sense. You should have a good line of sight. You know, it's not setting over the mountains or whatever.
Have you did you look into any of the setups where the panels track the sun? Are they worth it? Or are they overkill, or what do you think?
There's a guy, I think his name is Will Power or something like that, on Amazon on YouTube, and I watch a lot of his stuff. And this guy, I mean, he went from living in a van to he's got a big old nice house in Las Vegas now. And this guy knows this stuff when it comes to solar. And he actually was speaking about that one day. And he said it's cheaper and easier just to buy more panels than it is to try to do solar tracking. And, you know, this guy, like I said, you know, somebody that makes a living and has no degree in an area like that, you know, I'll take his word for it. You know, he said you can just add a few more panels on there instead of trying to, because not only is you have the initial cost of the tracker, but then any maintenance, if it breaks or anything like that. So he said a lot of times you can just throw a few more panels on there and you'll make up your difference from not having the perfect angle.
That makes sense. So it's cheaper just to multiply the amount of panels you have than to try to track the sun and use all that extra technology then.
Right. And I mean, like I said, that's his opinion and it's going to change. But if you think about it, the ease, because even if like mine on the roof, if I want to get there and change the pitch, you know, every week or something, that's a lot of work. I've seen a lot of people, you know, that maybe quarterly, if you want to do it, or I could just throw up an extra panel and call it a day.
So we chatted about this a little bit earlier. I thought Ted might ask. So he asked me the other night about the Duracell 660 system. So what you got any thoughts on that kind of stuff? Have you looked into any of them kind of all-in-one self-contained systems?
I've looked at them. I like them for form factor and ease. Like everything's right there in that little box, you know, your charger and all that. But I've also seen a lot of people build them, which it really depends on what you're going to be using it for. If it's something that you're going to be like throwing in a back of a truck and this and that and be rough with it, it might be better off to go with an all-in-one system like that. Personally, I've built something similar just using the milk crate, which they call it, you know, milk crate battery bank. And then I got my solar charge controller and everything. So all I got to do is get where I'm going, set the milk crate down, plug in my panel, and it's on. But it doesn't look good. It's just a bunch of stuff zip tied to a milk crate. And, if, you can put them inside tough boxes, and I'm sure you've seen little setups like that and everything. To me, the advantage of that is if you're buy that all-in-one system and the charger goes out, even though the battery's good, the unit's no good unless it's serviceable. I mean, this one particularly, I don't know if it's serviceable, then I could see it. But to me, I'd rather run to the truck stop, grab another, 3 or 500 watt inverter, slap it in there. Or if that kind of makes sense, and plus I do a lot of this to learn, so initially I wanted to build that to learn. Okay, I did this works, this doesn't work, don't cross these wires, things like that.
Well, I got to say, you said the milk crates were kind of ugly, but I think milk crates are kind of sexy. I use them for everything. I call them male Tupperware, you know what I mean? But so maybe I'm getting kind of what you're saying too. It's kind of like if you buy a Mac computer, everything, like an iMac, everything's self-contained. You can't really repair anything. But if you're into experimenting and doing shit, you can put together a PC part by part and learn the whole process. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Oh yeah. And it goes to too, like some people, they may be really good in 30 different ways of woodworking and all kinds of stuff. And they just want the technology and they ain't got time to mess with, trying to put one together. They got too much to go.
Rich says he agrees. He said solar tracking is not efficient or an efficient way to use energy to track the sun. And I never thought about it, but it would also use a little bit of power to do that tracking as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Unless they got some kind of good, some with the heat and the oil kind of thing to keep it moving.
Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know. I like the whole keep it simple, stupid type thing. And the easier and the simpler it is, the less can go wrong. And, you're just not so technical, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, yeah. And those little systems, though, I will say some of those are getting to be awesome and they are serviceable. But yeah, at this time, personally, I wouldn't buy one because I could throw one together for the same price and know how it all works and what to do with it.
So John asks, are lithium batteries worth it? I can bet you, being a numbers person, I bet you've at least looked into that, haven't you, Hawkins?
Yeah. I got multiple because I had to go through that same decision, less than a year ago myself. Should I get lithium or should I go with the cheap lead acid? And here's my opinion on it, I guess, if that makes sense. Lithium is it's awesome. I will say that the cycle rate's there, the weight's not there. It has a lot of really good things going for it. One of the negative things you got to remember, which a lot of newbies wouldn't know when it comes to solar, I guess, is not all charge controllers can charge lithium batteries. They will destroy a lithium battery if you're not careful, because lithium batteries have different like how high you charge them to, like the max charge rate and things like that, and how you got to have your temperature sensor. Because I didn't know this until sooner than I should have. Lithium battery, if you charge it when it's cold outside, like freezing, it will destroy it apparently, and that'd be that's why on the DEWALT chargers they have over temp and under temp charging protections. So if it's out in your garage, it's not going to charge your battery if it's freezing in your garage all night, because it'll destroy the battery.
I've had that happen here. As you can imagine, we get down into the minus 30, minus 40, and normally it's not too bad, but there are occasions when you get that, I think it's an orange blinking light or something, and it literally won't put a charge in. But
right.
if I keep them charged, they're good. But if they get low, then they won't take a charge, I guess. And yeah, extreme temperatures, I guess.
It's there's actually a temperature sensor usually in the battery and on the controller itself. So it takes the ambient temperature outside the controller does, and then the battery will take a temperature of the battery. Like when I run mine, like when I run that weed eater and I run it for 30 minutes straight, and I come in, I slap that battery on the charger. When it's done, it won't charge. It'll sit there and give me the same blinking light because the battery's too hot. So once the battery cools down, then it starts charging. But like I said, a lot of the charge controllers won't charge lithium batteries. So that's one thing you need to look at definitely, or you got to change settings in there. But the good thing about lithium is where they're lightweight, I think it's most of them are 3,000 to 5,000 cycles. That's
Ooh.
what they're coming with 10-year warranties now. And actually, if you start looking, like I said, that same guy, I'll have to send you a link to his channel so you can put it in the description, because he's got a lot of good stuff. Like, he tears the batteries apart and everything. People send him stuff to critique it that their engineers miss. And like I said, there's just so many good things about them, but the price is still there. I think you can get a 100 amp hour battery for a good one for around $400-$500, which isn't bad compared to a Battleborn, which is $1,000. But that's still a lot of money for a battery. For 12 volt, 100 amp hour battery, when you go spend that same $500 or $300 to $500 and get you 5 or 6 of them. But
that was going to be my next question. So what's the so you're looking at 4 to 5 times the cost. What's the lifespan for a standard lead acid battery compared to a lithium, if you know?
Lead acid, for the most part, from what I've seen, is 3 to 5. And now these are deep cycle batteries, 3 to 5, and that's you only bring them down the 50% rated charge of full charge. So basically, if it's a 100 amp hour battery, lead acid, deep cycle, you don't want to go use more than 50 amp hours out of it. So you can basically, even though you're saying you're buying a 100 amp hour battery, you're really buying a 50, because once you start going past that 50, you're doing a lot of damage. You're not going to get this. The more you drain out each time and fill it back up, you get less charges, if that makes sense. So if you drain it dead and fill it up, you may only get like 50 times doing that.
Okay.
But lithium, you can empty it all the way down and fill it back up 100 times more. They still, so I think they want to go down to use about 80% out of there is usually what it is, where you can get the 3,000 to 5,000 cycle rates. But that's still a huge difference in lead acid.
So you're actually almost getting twice the capacity for, so you're getting twice the capacity. I mean, the price is still 4 times as much, but you're getting 10 times the life or 5 to 10 times the life and almost double the capacity, hey? Or usable capacity.
Right. And that makes a big difference depending on what you're doing with it too. Because if you're going to be out remote, you might need all the power you can. And not to mention, like I said, the lightness of it. I think they're 1/3 the weight. So if it's 30 pounds, the regular battery is going to be 90. That could be, depending on what you're using them for and where they're going to be, that makes a difference.
Is there any, are they safer, less safe? Like I think back to the Samsung, lithium batteries that blew up and whatever, but are these better or worse?
Seen any kind of big safety issues. I haven't seen any big safety issues with them, really, when it comes to that kind of thing with it catching on fire. Your lead acid battery obviously has lead and acid in it. The big part's the acid. That's why some people want to go to the gel, or was it matted glass? And those are nicer because you could, they could be turned and twisted or whatever in different configurations. And there's no, acid to spill out. Like mine, when they boiled over, the acid came out. It was on the floor. So if it's going to be around kids or, people that don't know what they're doing, it might be better to have one of those other ones. But now you just got to add it expensive. Now you got a bigger push to lithium, because those are going to be, the AGMs are a lot more expensive.
Is there, I know technically, and a lot of times we, us in the preparedness field, we don't always do what they say we technically should do, but I know that they say you really shouldn't store those type of batteries indoors or in a living space. Is that a really big concern? And is that also a concern with lithium? I'm not don't want to throw it too far out there, but I was just curious if you happen to know.
Would I be concerned? No.
Okay.
I wouldn't put the batteries on my living room floor. If I was going to have them inside, I'd definitely have them in some kind of box or trunk or something like that to keep them, make sure nothing's going to fall on them. Nobody's going to mess with them, or that shouldn't be. That, just proper precautions like that. I know a lot of people say, they off-gas the hydrogen and stuff like that. Everything I've heard and read. I don't know did you get much with Steve Harris's battery backup systems and all that?
A little bit. There's a ton of stuff. I mean, man, I like that man. I learned more from that man over the years, but not a whole lot. No.
Yeah, I've watched most of his stuff that he put out on all that, and the hydrogen's extremely light, So the first thing it's going to do is float away. You're not going to be, it's not like unless you got like a battery room, you're not really going to have to worry about it. And then a small vent and a fan would be more than enough. But, it's going to leave. If you completely put it in a sealed container, yeah, you might have some kind of problem at some point. But people aren't going to do that. That stuff's going to leak out. It's gone. So I've never had any kind of thought of a safety risk from that. Like I said, the biggest thing is the acid. And as long as it's in a proper container of some kind, or, where it's not going to tip over or anything, and no one's going to mess with it, they're safe. Lithium, on the other hand, like I said, they're lighter. To me, they've always seemed a little, you do have that potential, but I mean, you have the potential with anything, but I've never seen them be a bigger risk, in my opinion.
So I know you guys moved I think it was in the last year or whatever, but where did you store your batteries at your old property? Where do you store them now?
At the old house, it was actually in the sunroom. We had an enclosed sunroom with the house, and so it was a south facing pitch. The roof on the sunroom was, so I just threw my panels up there, and like I said, it was a little trunk down below. And the wire just came through the wall, went to the trunk, and then I had my inverter sitting on top of it. So if I ever want to use it, just go over there, hit the button, turn the inverter on, and I was good to go. Oh, and that was the other thing. There's a lot of things with the 12 volt that you can use. Like how I said, I charged my phone, I ran some lights and stuff like that. Was all 12 volt stuff. That didn't even, because the inverter, you'll actually have some losses on your inverter. And just with it sitting idle, you'll drain some juice. So that's something to keep in mind, If you don't have a very big battery and you got your inverter sitting there all the time on, it's going to be constantly draining that battery. So if you can run it from 12 volt, then you skip the inverter, you skip those losses. And there are 12 volt DEWALT chargers.
Really? I'll have to look. Yeah. So if you've got an inverter plugged in to that system, it's going to be drawing a bit of power, whether you're running anything on it or not at that point.
If the inverter's turned on. I mean, because you got fans and all that kind of stuff. The bigger the inverter, the more it's going to pull. But the smaller ones, like 150 watt, I don't even think it has a fan in there. It just has a heat sink. So you're really not going to be, you might maybe half a watt, if that. But yeah, some of the bigger ones I've seen up to 5-10 watts.
So if you can, I guess that makes sense, but anything you can eliminate from a system is one less power drain or power waste. So if you can run your lights, or I guess I know they make small little, I don't know if they make a coffee maker that's 12 volt, but there's a lot of things you could plug direct right off the battery. So if you can do that, you're going to eliminate one more spot where power can sneak out.
Right. And yeah, and like you said, with the 12 volt, I mean, literally, I don't know about you, but I've wired quite a few 12 volt extra plugs for my vehicles. It's the same thing. You can buy the ones with the little pigtail and plug it in, or you can actually, what I usually do, I use cannibalize a lot of stuff because you can buy it cheaper. Like with the 12 volt stuff, instead of buying the little plug with the two ends that are already stripped off for you, and then buying the receivers to plug in somewhere else, I'll buy the little dongle that has 3 12 volt plugs on it, and the other side, and I'll cut it. And now I got all those cords I can use.
That makes sense. I know whenever we travel, we got a few Flying J's up here, but you go through some of the bigger Flying J truck stops, and they're like a 12 volt superstore. They've got stuff in there I'd never even seen that you could run off 12 volt.
Oh yeah, we had one about 15 miles from my last house, Flying J. So you can even run your CB.
Yeah, see, I've been talking about that. That's a whole nother. I've got a goal. I set goals every year anyway, but this next goal is going to be that I got to be able to. I got in-laws who are 10 miles, but anyway, about 10 miles away as the crow flies, and I want to have the simplest off-grid communication I can have. So something, I don't even know exactly where I'm going yet, but I think it's going to end up being some kind of CB system, because it seems to be the only thing that'll get me enough range, but solar may play a part in that too. So as far as, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say on that same note, you don't have to, because solar is really 2 parts. It's a battery bank and then a charging. So solar is just the energy you're using to charge your battery bank. I mean, that's what I try to explain to a lot of people. So really, if you already have good power in your house, it would almost make more sense to build you a good battery bank. That's on this side. and just you get a regular 12-volt charger, plug it in the wall, keep those batteries topped off. You can have your inverter sitting there, all your 12-volt gadgets already hooked up to it, and now you have that battery bank. And then later on, maybe when you get the cash and you can go buy your solar charger, because like I said, my car controller was $300 and something. To me, that's not an everyday purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And then buy your panels. And now you could even have it all set up, but you don't have to necessarily be using it. I don't think, I think solar panels, they're really degrading over time anyways, more than just sitting out. But you don't have to be getting all your power there is what I'm saying. You can still be pulling off the grid, and then the grid goes down. You realize it's going to be out for a week, depending on how big of a system you have. You could just throw out 2-3 panels, run the cord in, because you can't keep your battery bank topped off. But now you can just throw those panels out, put them on a kickstand, and you're good to go.
That is awesome. I would never have thought of that. So in other words, you can always have a battery bank there, which is kind of like your stored power. And you really don't have to frig with the solar necessarily until you need it. And then if you're, an absolute worst case scenario where maybe we had a big ice storm or a storm come through and you're not going to have any grid, and maybe you're out of fuel for your generator, or maybe you don't have a generator, but you do have a few solar panels for your RV or whatever it happens to be. Mm-hmm. So then all of a sudden that can be your emergency power system.
Yep. I have some 315 watt solar panels. They're about 3x6 and about 40 or 50 pounds each. But I could throw those out and put a couple 2x4s behind them to angle them how I want and run a cord into a charge controller 15 minutes.
So I would like to, we almost sold our camper this year, but we didn't, even though we haven't really camped much in the last 3-4 years. But I would love to set up a small solar system on that, maybe similar to what you're talking about there. Have you looked into any of that? I mean, is anything different for mobile? I'm sure it would work good, but does it seem like something that's pretty doable?
Yeah. There's actually a guy that was at Jack's the last couple of years, and he lives out of a van, and he's got the same size, the 3x6 solar panels on his roof. I think he's got 6 of them up there. It's a big van. And it kind of looks like a church bus size van, the little buses. And but I mean, and when he parks at an angle, and one side's made to pivot, and he pivots them up, puts some kickstands under them. But the rest of the time they're just laying flat, and it keeps all the stuff charged. The biggest thing with an RV that I would be concerned about is temperature, especially where you live, because that cold is going to wreak havoc on those batteries. If that's the main thing you're doing with them. So do you have a garage or anything to park in?
Yeah. So I guess maybe what I'm thinking, because obviously we're not going to be living in the RV in the middle of winter. I mean, we do have heat, but them damn things are not insulated barely at all. So, it would be more of a 6 months of the year, and then disconnect the batteries, bring them inside, and keep a trickle charger or a maintainer on them or something like that. So I don't know, maybe a feller could maybe you could set up a small battery bank that you could keep in your house 6 months of the year and keep in the RV 6 months of the year. Does that seem like something you could do?
Yeah, because as far as like taking apart and putting back together a battery bank, depending on, I don't know how many batteries would you carry, about 4 in that thing? Or are you talking about building something custom for it?
No, a 4 would be, anything would be fine. I'm just, I don't, obviously I'm not going to be able to run my air conditioner off it, but it'd be nice to be able to run, everything else, right?
Yeah, because lights and all LED lights and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's 90% of what we use power for. It seems like is lights and monitors, charging phones, and that's all low draw things. But it makes a huge difference between having a light over your head and not. So, but yeah, I would just, if I was going to do like when you put them in parallel, forgive me if I'm wrong.
That's okay.
But when you put them in there, I would number them the same. To make sure when you took them apart and put them up together, you did it the same. That way the order doesn't change and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
I would definitely try to keep that. And then, but yeah, I don't see why, because you're only talking about with 4 batteries, undoing a few bolts here and there and moving them, or you might even already have them in a pre-made container and you just pull the container. And have you seen the big plugs? They're big square plugs like this, and like they're made to connect like higher voltage and amperage items. I don't know if you've seen anything. I can't remember the name of the plug.
No,
like
that's
our
all right.
industrial equipment at my work. They actually use them. The plug the big forklifts and stuff in. They're battery powered forklifts, but you can buy them on smaller and larger. So having something like that where you can just basically build your battery bank, have it in a crate, and then you're just plugging them in.
So Jerry, he said, yeah. So I got a video coming up. I don't know, it might be next month sometime. I'm going to do on like how to keep your vehicle running in the middle of winter, because we have a lot of that, seem to get a lot of questions. But the battery warmers, I call them battery blankets, but they're all about the same type of thing. But that absolutely would work, and they don't use a ton of power.
Some of the higher end lithium batteries actually come already with warmers inside of the battery. So the battery, when it gets to a certain temperature, it kicks its own warmer on, which is kind of neat.
I never thought about this, and maybe you did, but Derek Bonpietra there, he answers some of the questions on Jack's Expert Council. Anyway, they were talking about doing a Tesla swap, like Buddy wanted to replace a standard anyway. And something I had never ever thought of course, with an internal combustion engine, your byproduct is heat, right? So you're creating it, you're making power, or drivetrain, whatever, but you're getting heat. So if you need to heat up a car, no big deal. But with batteries, there's almost no heat whatsoever. So the only way to do that is through resistance. So I thought, that's you solve a whole bunch of other problems, but you create one new one,
I got 2 hybrid Priuses. So yeah.
How long have you had those?
But the nice thing is, we've had a Prius for 8-9 years. I had another one before the 2 that we had now. We've had them forever because I live about 40-50 miles from where I work. So, 45-50 miles a gallon. It's pretty nice over my truck that's like 12.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've been talking
the same
to
thing
the
in there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say the same thing on there with, as far as running off electric and versus the engine, because it does have both. But from what I understand, it's mainly the electric on all that. The engine just kicks on to keep the batteries charged up is one of their main uses. And those electrical systems are kind of crazy. But yeah, when I first had this building, before I had my solar all set up, I actually just parked the Prius outside and had a 1,000-watt inverter hooked up to it and left it running all night. And I used a gallon of gas or so.
So, was that to run power off the Prius, or was that to charge the Prius?
No, I was running the Prius, had a 1,000-watt inverter hooked to the 12-volt. There's a 12-volt battery inside the Prius as well.
Yep.
And I had, a regular 12-volt inverter, 1,000-watt running off and running all my lights and some of my power tools in here. And but I don't know how much you know about Priuses. They have an automatic on-off engine. So the engine kicks on, tops the battery off, and then turns off.
Okay.
So then you drain the battery down. When the battery gets to a certain level, it kicks the engine back on. So yeah, I used about a gallon of gas or 2 for 12 hours of being in the building all night running that inverter.
Yes, sir. Huh. Well, and I know we got off on a little tangent here, but it's, cold weather that me and the missus, we've talked about it, and we'd love to eventually get an electric vehicle, but I know it's getting closer, but I mentioned earlier about our -40, like 2 years ago, we had, I want to say it was 2 solid weeks where it never got above -35 Celsius. And if anybody wants to know how cold that is, that's basically -35 Fahrenheit too. And cold and batteries, they're just not quite there yet. You know what I mean? Like you've probably seen, I love my DEWALT cordless landscaping gear, and I use it all summer. We switch completely to it. But when it comes to blowing snow in the wintertime, of course, it's like blowing sand here because it's really fine and, it's dry. Okay. But they haven't made a backpack blower that'll hold up to, my cold Canadian weather yet. So if they can do it, I'll switch. If it's powerful enough, got enough runtime, but extreme temperatures, I think, are a real pain in the butt for batteries, don't they seem to be?
Oh yeah. Like I said, here alone, when I'm running that weed eater, it's that lithium battery there. It gets hot, when I'm running constant, and it makes a big difference. If you let off of it, give it a couple minutes to kind of cool back down, because when you're sucking all that energy out, especially, and it's already hot, That's why I was wondering with the leaf blower, if it started getting better as you went. And did you keep your batteries like in the truck with you on the way to the job and stuff? So they were warm when you started, or were they in the back?
So mine, as far as the blower goes, all I've got is a handheld blower. Like all my other tools are, full size. They just, I think Ryobi's got one. I've looked at it and they'll be okay. But like, I just bought a brand new still. It's the BR800. That thing I think could blow what little bit of hair I got left off my head. But seriously, it can move. Like that one you could probably blow about 4 inches of snow. Like it's incredible. They just haven't got the power or the runtime yet into the backpack blowers, but it'll come. Oh, what Ted say here? Yeah, let's see what he's got. I don't know if you ever watched the silver symbol channel on YouTube. He's
no, I haven't.
A guy.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he's from Boston, but he just had a really cool Quebec-based battery pack and everything. It was really neat. But so he said, love the silver symbol setup, charge the batteries off your alternator. Yeah. So that, I don't know if you've seen that or not, but this setup was, you could wire it direct to your alternator and basically get a whole bunch more output into the batteries straight from the alternator than if you ran it through a inverter. I don't know. You ever seen anything like that? I'd just throwing it at you.
No,
but I hadn't before.
I would just be wondering once again, because dumping that charge into your batteries, does it have any kind of is it going through any kind of charge controller at all, or is he just running straight off the alternator?
So this one, this was incredible. It's built for the military, and if I'm wrong, Ted, you can correct me, but I think it was like 15 grand, and it looked like it was in like a friggin' ruggedized military foot locker, but it was plastic. You know what I mean? Like totally sealed down. Everything was sealed in with like security bits, but I want to say maybe it had like a 6,000 peak watt off the batteries. But the thing was like technologically advanced. It was made, it actually had an input on it to run directly off alternator. So it was made for it.
Okay.
But
it's got some kind of charge
super
controller
cool.
in there.
And that would work because I guess an alternator, you're probably going to get a little bit of fluctuation in what's coming in right off it, wouldn't you be?
Yeah, and that's why I would have to have some kind of charge controller. And on the note about military equipment, because I did do my 20 years there. Great idea for brand beyond mil spec is an idea I came up with. It's shit so good the military can't afford it. So just keep that in mind. Military grade isn't what you always think it is, in my opinion.
I've heard that. So a lot of the military guys, because they always joke like, oh, it's military grade, this or that. And then I got a buddy who's in the military too. And they always say like, just because it's military grade, don't mean it's quality.
Oh yeah. Our generators almost never work. And then our combiner boxes, if you could find one, the wires. Yeah, it was just, we never had much luck. But the newer stuff, I'm sure, is better. Hopefully.
In theory, right? But
yeah.
So let me, I'll slide back to our questions because I know we've been, I could chat all night about it, but no, it's fine, man. No worries at all. But so you set up your solar system. If there was one thing you could have done different, because I'm sure once you get down a path with solar, sometimes you're kind of stuck there. If there's something you could have went back and done different from the start or even halfway along, what would it have been?
Better batteries. That's definitely something I would have done different. I went with the cheapest deep cycle batteries I could find, and although they work, the capacity is just not there. I would have rather just got they didn't have them when I was building them. They came out in the last 6 months or so. 2 of those 300, $300 or $400 lithium 100-watt batteries. I would have rather got 2 of those than spending the $400 I did on the batteries I got. That'd probably be the one upgrade I would change.
So you're basically stuck for the life of these batteries at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as having the batteries, yes. But like I said, my inverter went out. So the good thing is, though, if I wanted to, because the inverter was $300 something, I believe. If I wanted to go get, I already have a couple, 12 volt inverters, I could easily turn these back in the 12 volt configuration. And that wouldn't hurt anything.
Okay.
And so especially now that I'm not using that much power, I don't need I don't need that much coming in because I'm not really using them. I'm just using them to charge all my power tool batteries.
So you said about how you shouldn't mix or match new versus old batteries and that sort of thing. So, okay, say you've got 4 batteries right now, like you do, or I think that's what you said, right? And so if you have 4 batteries and they're halfway through their life and you want to expand the capacity of your system, what would you do?
Build a separate battery bank, and probably just use the second charge controller, honestly.
Okay.
I would cut my panels in half, use a couple panels on one, a couple panels on the other.
And that way, I guess you got redundancy built in there too, because then if you have some batteries fail, or if then you could just swap those other panels over to the other batteries, and you might be good to go.
Right, and that's the other advantage. Like we were talking about that little all-in-one system. You don't learn it. To me, it's all about learning, I guess. And 90% of the time, it's what can I learn from this experience or from this item I'm buying or tool or whatever. So with me building this and having this knowledge, now I could go and easily, like I said, turn it into 2 12-volt systems or 4 1-volt systems. There's all kinds of possibilities because I built it. I know how it works. I can take it apart and put it back together again.
It's like building a skill set. Hey, once you get to a certain point, then you can just build on top of that. You learn. It's same with carpentry, handyman stuff. You learn a little bit, and then you can build up onto it. And Jerry, he said, I built a couple of hand wash trailers used for wildland fires camps. That sounds like there'd be an interesting story behind that, Jerry. But he says last year he converted them to 12 volt, and it's a learning process. He used propane for heat and used 12 volt for pumps and lights. That sounds like a pretty slick setup.
And that's exactly what I do, because you're not going to do much heating off of these off your batteries. So yeah, that's what I used in the garage first year, was all propane heat.
What's he got here? So what he asked too, what is the charging and discharging difference between marine and 6-volt golf cart batteries? Marine batteries failed quickly. Do you know?
No. As far as the discharge difference, I don't know exactly what he means by there. Cycle life wise, I'm not 100%. It's really gonna, and not to mention, it's gonna, you can get super cheap golf cart batteries and really expensive marine batteries. So it's kind of hard to compare them, because you get the cheapest of both, and then you got your issues there, plus the cells collapsing or things like that. As far as, I think they're both made for deep discharging. So that shouldn't really make a huge difference. The big thing is, I don't know how much you know about regular car batteries, but from everything I've been told, if you drain a car battery like 3 to 5 times, it's done. You might as well just go get you a new one. So a lot of times, one time of draining it, leaving the car on, to where it's dead, just throw it away. Well, trade it in.
Try doing that when it's minus 30 out too, because I ended up putting a gel battery in my quad 2 years ago, because I would end up letting it, my four-wheeler would sit. And of course I thought I would be so slick. I put heated handlebars on it because my hands would get cold, and it didn't, I forgot to put an inline shutoff in. So they would end up, I'd leave them on all the time and they'd die. So then I wouldn't drive it for 2 weeks. So then I'd go out and the damn thing wouldn't even take a charge because it was froze solid. And somehow I'd bring it in, warm it up, charge it again, and it would work. But I switched to a gel battery and they seem almost impervious to the cold.
Yeah, that's good. The other thing, when you're talking about the cold, I got an old Massey Ferguson tractor. It's a pretty good one, big one. And it's got the big battery in there. And that battery, I mean, it's a half-day job to change that battery out, because it's got a front-end loader and there's all kinds of tricks and twists you got to do. But that's one thing I did this past winter, because I was having a lot of trouble. Batteries go dead in the winter. They just drain quicker or whatever it is. I took 2 of those Harbor Freight panels. That's what I was talking about, where it's nice that you get so many of them. I bought a second charge controller, took 2 of those Harbor Freight panels, slapped them on the back of that tractor, and kept the battery charged up fully the whole year. So anytime I needed it during the winter, it was a completely full battery, and just started right up.
So just charge controller. And so if you wanted to do that dirt cheap, what did you, must have been a fairly inexpensive charge controller you picked up, was it?
I think it was $15, maybe $12-15 off Amazon.
Yes, sir.
And then in order to run my cables, like I said, I like buying stuff and then cutting it up. I bought some cheap jumper cables, and I cut them in half. So now I can take those and I wired them in, and then I clamped them on the battery, ran to the charge controller, put the charge controller in the cab of the tractor, ran out to the solar panels, and I had a topped off battery all winter long.
I think so. I love trickle chargers. I use them for my quad. I use them for my, I'm getting ready to put one on my generator. I think that would be a pretty cool little project, is to set up a small, what would a feller even need to run a little trickle charger like that? Like, would one, you said you had 2 of those panels from Harbor Freight. How much are they? And would one work, or what do you think?
They're 25 watts a piece, those panels are. But if you buy them individually, you're looking at $60 at Harbor Freight. They're around 60, $70. You can get the whole kit for 180. So that's one thing like I've ended up doing with mine is I've cannibalized those panels, and now I can hook a panel and a charger up to my lawnmower, to the tractor, to a car. It's going to sit for a while. You know, you got 4 places I can put a 25 watt panel. And if you're going to put 12, 15 watts into it, you know, it's going to keep it topped off from those, you know, vampire drains.
Mm-hmm. So
and, I was going to say, it's not really a trickle charger because you have the potential to put a whole lot more in than a trickle charger would. You know, because if it got low, you know, a trickle charger is only going to put a little bit in it, so it's never going to even be able to charge it. This would actually be able to charge the battery if need to be, especially if you put like 50 watts on there.
We're going to have to chat about that some more, because I think that I'm always looking for little generator projects to do, because those videos always seem to do the best on the channel. I don't know why, but I like that idea. I wouldn't mind. And even then, because in the winter, I park my quad in there as well, so I wouldn't mind maybe being able to bring in enough power to keep my my 4-wheeler charged up and my generator charged up without having to plug them in, you know?
Yeah, you definitely just want to make sure you got a different charge controller for each one. You know, because if they're in the same one, now it's kind of like blending, you know, mixing batteries. But as long as they got their own charge controller, and you know, because you might have a shed or a building that doesn't have power, and if that's all you're wanting to do, it doesn't make sense to run power necessarily, unless you're going to be like me and just run a 50-foot or 100-foot extension cord.
So, and there's no battery required for that, right? You're just straight panel to a charge controller.
It's got its own battery. Yeah, you're charging that battery.
Oh, okay.
So that's the battery of the solar system at that point.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Dumb. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. That's okay. That's cool. That would be a really small beginner way to maybe get your feet wet into a small solar system. Hey.
Yeah, and it's a good practical one. Like the other one I got is a dump trailer, and you know that may not be parked 500 feet out in a field somewhere. But if I want to keep it's got its own battery for the hydraulic pump on the dump trailer. You know, so I just slap a panel there and hook the charge. You know, like I said, those little battery clamps up to it, and that keeps it topped off.
Did you see that? I bought that Ford 1-ton dump body. It's an 87. That thing there's some sort of short in there that if it sits for a month, the battery's dead. So that would be perfect to have a small solar panel to keep it up and running.
Another thing with that, especially on a vehicle, like with our military or the big vehicles in the military, there's an actually hard kill switch right on the battery. So you just get on there and you got to twist it. So a lot of people, if they go to still it, they don't know that's there, or you can actually turn it and put a padlock on it. And so they can't start it because the battery's disconnected. And Harbor Freight does sell those disconnects. I actually have one on my solar system. So if something happened and the charge controller was messing up and I need to turn off the power coming in from the solar panels, it's just a big key and you turn it, and you can actually remove the key. And without that key, you can't turn it back on. So it's also an added anti-theft kind of device. You know, and that's one of the places they suggest is for like vehicles and stuff. You know, you cut the line, and you're going from your battery to your alternator or battery to the starter.
Yep.
Cut that line there, and you just wire that in and crimp it down. Oh. And now you got, you know, it's a simple little key, but who's going to carry one of those things around or even know to look for it? You know,
and even. And you can, so if you just turn it, can you leave the key in there if you wanted to, or do you have to remove it in order to kill the?
No, you can just leave it sitting in there. You know, like when it's in the on position, the key won't come out. So like your quad, if it's out in the barn, nobody can steal it. Because even if they tried to hotwire it, they would have to know to look for that battery shut off. You know, on top of, and then they could bridge it, of course, but they would have to know to look for it.
See, this is great. I love this. So many little projects. See, I always love chatting with other people. You learn stuff and you realize, oh, I can start with this. And, I
Mhm.
love that idea. I think I don't know. I got about 5 different things I'd like to, but
Yeah.
so I don't know. I guess we kind of ran over all the essential pieces, the things that you need. But so if I know we've talked about it a little bit, but if somebody wanted to get started, you'd say buy a kit to start with, play with that, and then build your own.
I would suggest that just because of the ease of it. You don't have to worry, because that's the other thing. Like, if you go out and buy a charge controller and buy panels, you need to make sure you look at the voltage of the panels, because some charge controllers can only handle so much voltage, and those MP the cheap ones, MPW or whatever panels or charge controllers, they don't always say what voltage they take. So if you get my panels that I have are like 30 to 40 volts. Well, one of those little things, it would fry it, because they only take up to like 18 to 20 volts, max. So if you buy a kit, you already know all that's paired. Kind of like if you want to build a computer for the first time, you'd buy a kit instead of buying all the individual pieces.
Yeah.
So you're still getting the experience of putting it all together, and you're going to learn from there.
But it's not as difficult as buying a bunch of random off the shelf pieces that you're trying to put together. It's almost buying like the old kits you used to be able to buy for all kinds of different things when we were kids,
Oh yeah. And like I can put a PC and a laptop back together, but if you want me to build one, it's going to take me twice as long, because I got to research all the parts and make sure they're all compatible.
Yeah. Order everything and the whole works, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we've done well. We did an hour and 15 minutes and never even skipped a beat, So I know it's getting late on the East Coast. Ted's probably, I know we started an hour early, so it's been kind of nice. But so tell me, Hawkins, for the few people that don't know who you are, where can people find you so we can keep up with you and see all your solar exploits and things like that?
The best place to find me is on YouTube at Chickenhawk Farmstead. And that's my little symbol there. I'm also on MeWe under, I think it's Hawkins J. And I have an account on Facebook, but I'm not really there. And I'm trying to get into Float and work with that. Yeah, and Odyssey as well under Chickenhawk Farmstead. But so everything from my YouTube bleeds over to there. It's a good backup for me.
I've got all your links in, at least I think I did. I'm pretty sure I copied them all over. If I haven't, I'll make sure they're there. But and I think I don't have your Float link, so I'll try to get that from you too if I can. But okay. I'm the same way. If anybody's looking for an alternative, run over to Float, because I love it. But so thanks, Hawkins. I appreciate it. This was awesome. I'd love to do it again. I'd love to get a roundtable discussion with a bunch of us on here. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But thanks, man. And anything else you wanted to tell us before we finish up?
No, that's it. And I appreciate being here. It was really fun. Great chatting with you. And the roundtable thing would be awesome, because as you can see, as we bounce these ideas back and forth, we come up with some really good ones. Because I have a side-by-side myself, and I think I'm going to put one of those kill switches on it.
See, it's funny, the stuff that we figure out, and, just Ted says he's still wide awake trim. See, he's so asleep he can't even remember what my name is, so that's all right. But oh, actually, you know what? Before we shut down here, John just asked a question. Yes. So do you want to, so I'll bring it up on the screen for anybody. But yeah, see, I try to shut down, but I love it when people ask questions. That's good. So does snow melt off the panel, or do you have to clean them?
You have to clean them, but they are glass on the surface. So the best is either a broom, or what I found even better is like a squeegee. So like if you get one of the long telescopic ones, because if they're not on the second story of your house or whatever, or even there, you can get a PVC pipe, but like a little squeegee for cleaning your windows with the snow, something like that. And usually it slides right off. But I mean, if you got the ice and stuff, it's going to be just like your windshield of your car. If you got that thick ice, it's just going to be there. That's another downside, because it could take a day or two for that to melt.
Have you ever seen, of course, this is in Canada, but they have, I haven't installed them, but they do work really well. They're like a spider web of electrical wire that people put up on their eaves, and it helps melt the snow. I wonder if it would be safe to run a couple of those on your solar panel to keep some of the ice from accumulating, or do you think might
Does it
not
cover
be.
the glass up? Actually, does it actually cover the glass?
Only it would be really thin. It's just wire, like wire thin.
It could cut you some back, but if you're in a high snow area, no, that actually to me sounds like a great idea. I'm gonna have to go look and see if they actually make that, or ask some of the people I follow on solar and see what they think about that. Because
Yeah.
yeah, if you got them up on the roof on a 2-story building or something, you ain't getting up there cleaning it. And if
No.
you're only going to lose, 5%, it might be worth it if you're in a real cold area. That'd be a great idea. And but you got to make sure you clean them anyways, because even just regular debris and stuff like mine, I need to get up there, and that's what I'm gonna use is a long squeegee and clean them off real quick.
Cool. All right. Well, that I think we'll end her there. So hang on for a sec, Hawkins. I'll just switch off to the single line here. And so, guys, see, there's Hawkins all by himself now. I'll come back with me. There we go. All right. So thanks, guys. It was always nice having Hawkins on here. This is awesome. If anybody's hanging in here on the replay and you want to know where you can find me too, it's toolmantim.co. So just run by there, check it out. And guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Good morning, guys. Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. It's Saturday morning, which means it's time for another edition of the Weekend Workshop. And this week, we are going to talk about powering your house with a generator through backfeeding. Now, this is the finished product. I'm not going to hold the entire thing up while I talk to you, but it looks rather dangerous. But if you follow the proper safety procedures, it can be done very easily and very safely. I'm going to talk about all that at the end. I'm filming this video in reverse. I'm actually filming this intro about 2 weeks after I filmed all the rest of the video. So you'll get to see a little bit about how I put this together, the things that I have learned. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just showing you what I have done, because people are going to backfeed whether we talk about it or not. So we might as well get ahead of the curve and say this is what we can do safely. So I'm going to show you what I've learned from other experts, and I'm going to tell you all about the safe procedure for backfeeding properly so that you don't hurt yourself, and more importantly, you don't hurt a lineman. All right, guys, real quick before we dive in, anything you want to know about me, toolmantim.co. That's toolmantim.co. And you can go there, you can find my social media links, add me across all the different platforms, check out the monthly newsletter, the weekly podcast, and most importantly, check out the shop section where there is over 100 Amazon products that I have links to, all the products that meet the Toolman Tim seal of approval, stuff I've used in my handyman business that makes me money or saves me money. So drop by there, check that out. We got a full range of categories: household, painting goods, hand tools, cordless gear, and of course preparedness items. So go by there if you're looking for a solution to a problem that you have, and you might just find it. All right, guys, so like I said, this week I want to talk about backfeed cables for your generator. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm not going to tell you this is just for informational purposes only. I don't want to be that guy, but I do want to show you the backfeed cable that I'm building. I want to tell you the parts that I bought, the gauge that I'm using, which is probably overkill, but I want everything to be safe. And I thought I would share with you guys. It doesn't mean do what I do, but I thought I would at least show you what it is that I'm doing. So before we go too far, what exactly is backfeeding? And well, that is you're using your generator to feed your house so that you have power when the power's out. Now, the absolute biggest concern about backfeeding is that you have to 110% without anything. You have to make sure that your main breaker at the very top of your panel is turned off. If you don't know what a main breaker is, turn this video off right now and leave, because that is important. I have an interlock switch coming. That is what makes backfeeding legal and safe in most jurisdictions. But if you're not sure, look it up. If you're not comfortable with electrical work, don't do this. Don't watch the video. But basically what an interlock switch is something that the only way you can turn on your 50 amp breaker to feed your house with your generator is if this little mechanical metal plate goes across so that your main switch has to be off. It's the only way, because, and I need to stress this, When you're backfeeding, if you don't turn off your main switch, you can kill someone. Basically, what happens is you've got an open feed out to the grid. You're feeding your electricity into your house. It can go up, out the power line, down the main lines, and get stepped up through transformers until it finds linesmen out there trying to fix the power lines, and then he's going to have a bad day. So you absolutely, when you are feeding your house with a generator, you have to make sure that your main breaker is off. So now that we got that out of the way, what exactly is a backfeeding cable? So with my generator, and they're all going to be different, you need to check yours. Mine has a 220 outlet that is rated for 50 amps. So you need to have a cable that is rated for 50 amps. And what that cable needs to have on it, here is my number, what do we got here? I want to show you this. That's my number 6.3. It's 25 feet long. That is the 50 amp cable that I need with the male plug on one end. I ordered this on Amazon, and what you get is a male plug on one side and a bare wire connection on the other side. That's the only way you can order those. And then you need to order another 50 amp male plug on the other end. And you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, if you've got two bare plugs on either end, again, that is going to be dangerous. There is a process for following this. Now, there's lots of good videos out there on how to properly backfeed, but the two things you need is either you or an electrician, depending on what your area requires. You need to put in an interlock switch, and that's the switch that turns off your main and then allows you to turn on your 50 or whatever your backfeed outlet allows. And then the other thing is you need to have an electrician or someone put in a 50 amp outlet or whatever amperage outlet you need to backfeed on the exterior of your house. So now you're set up. You have an outlet on the outside that you can plug your generator into, and now we need to make a backfeed cable. So if you've ever replaced an end on an extension cord, this is exactly like that, just on a larger scale. These wires are a little difficult to work with, but you're just going to strip them down like normal, take apart the male end of the plug, and then make your connections. Red and black on either side, ground at the top, and white neutral at the bottom. Put it all back together, hold your tongue just right, tuck it all into place, put your screws back together, and now you have a male plug on both ends of this 6.3 25 gauge, the 25-foot extension cord. So I hope that helps, guys. Okay, so now that you have your completed backfeed cable together, there's a process that you need to follow to plug this in safely so that you don't have a bad day. We're talking about 220 volts here, the type of electricity that can easily kill you. So if you're not comfortable with this, or it's something that you don't like doing, then just turn this off. Like I said, I think that's like disclaimer number 4 in this video. So I just want to let you know that this is just the information that I've put together that I know. So from there, what you need to do is you have your main outlet, your main power turned off in the house. You still have your 50 amp breaker turned off in the house. That's the one that's going to be feeding through the RV outlet on the outside of your house. So then you're going to take your plug and you're going to plug it into the wall of the house. Then you're going to come back and your generator's off at this point. Then you're going to plug the other male end into your generator. That way you're never having a chance of touching these plugs when they're energized. Okay? So now you've got your breaker off at the house. You've got your plug plugged into your house, plug plugged into your generator. Make sure the breaker's off in the generator. Start your generator. Then once it's on, you can turn that breaker on the generator. That way you never have your hands anywhere you shouldn't have your hands. Then you can go inside, have all your breakers turned off, turn that 150 amp breaker on that feeds your panel, and then slowly turn the rest of your breakers on that you're going to use. That's the entire process. It's simple. If you're not careful, you're going to hurt yourself. So like I said, the things you need to look at when building a backfeed cable. Make sure you have the right gauge for what I am putting through. I've got 50 amps. I'm running it. I wanted at least 20 feet away from the house, so I bought a 25-foot cable. I bought 6.3 wire. That's what you need. Some people might say you could probably do it with 8.3, but for my instance, I wanted 6.3. I made sure I got the right outlets right here for both. Both male ends are the exact same. Then you want to make sure you have your outlet on the outside of the house. That's all you need. And then of course you follow the process where nothing's turned on, the main breaker is off, your 50 amp breaker, your feeding breaker is off as well in the house. Then you're going to plug one male into the outside of the house, one male into the generator, then you're going to start your generator. That way, you know, if you are backfeeding, you're doing it as safely as possible. Number one, you're protecting the lineman, and number two, you're protecting yourself. And those are the two things. And then, of course, there are people who do this without those interlink or the lockout switch devices. If you're going to do that, I don't condone it. I don't say it. I've in the past tried it and done it for a test. You could even run it through, say, a 50 amp electric range outlet, and that's totally fine. But I just wanted to tell you and show you what I bought to make a backfeed cable and how to do it safely. Because if you're going to do it anyway, I might as well be on here and share with you what I've learned. And one other cool thing that I really like are these new 220 volt plugs that have these pull-offs here. Not that you're ever going to be dealing with these plugs when they're energized, but 220 plugs with those to keep your fingers away from any of the prongs is an excellent idea, even at the best of times. So I hope this video was informative to you guys. I hope you liked seeing me put together this backfeed cable. I thought it'd be kind of a fun little project. It was something I wanted to do, so why not record it and share it with you? Now, if I got anything wrong in this video at all, I'm sure someone's going to let me know, and I would appreciate it if you did. If there's anything you want me to do a follow-up video on, maybe a little more on this process, I don't know how much I want to put out there and show, because I don't ever want to be liable for someone doing something they shouldn't do. But at least I could show you how to make a backfeed cable properly, and that's about all I wanted to show you, and how to be safe. Because guys, it's all good and well to have everything on hand for a backup power emergency, but if we're not doing it safe, you're better off not having any of the damn stuff to begin with. If you've got a generator but you don't know how to use it, and there's so many things can go wrong. Fire, gases, and of course burning your house down or electrocuting yourself, any of that. So if you can't do this safely, research, read, watch until you're comfortable with it, or hire a professional that can do it. So I hope that helps, guys. That's it for me this week. If you want to see more of these videos, just put it in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to learn from me, because I'm learning as I go and I'm sharing with you what I know. So thanks, guys. And if you're new, 5 videos a week, hit the subscribe button, hang around, introduce yourself in the comments, let us know who you are. And thanks for hanging out with me in the workshop this week, guys. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop, where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. It's Monday morning, which means it's time for another money-making minute. And this week's video was inspired by one I did last month. I did my top 5 drywall fasteners last month. And I got asked, hey Tim, I need to fasten something to concrete. What do you recommend? And I thought, hey, why don't I do another top video? This week I want to share with you my top 3 fasteners for concrete. Alright guys, real quick before we dive into this week's top 3 video, if you want to know more about me, run by toolmantim.co, that's toolmantim.co. Find my social links there, and more importantly, you'll find the shop, where I have over links to 100 Amazon products, stuff that I have used personally, products that work for me in my handyman business, stuff that's either made me money or saved me money in the long run. A lot of cool categories over there. We got painting tools, hand tools, household items, and preparedness items. So run by there. If you're looking for a recommendation, check that out. This week, like I said, I wanted to share with you guys my top 3 go-to concrete fasteners. So let's start out with one that isn't mechanical per se, and that is PL Premium. There's a lot of different ones on the market, but I've used LePage's PL Premium for a long time, simply because it'll basically glue your hand to your head if you hold it there long enough. But it's good for so many products. And so what are the pros and the cons of using an adhesive, a liquid, caulking tube adhesive, to mount, say, wood or something to concrete? Well, the big con is the time that it takes. It has a good initial hold, but if you want to get a proper bond, it needs to be mechanically supported for like 24 hours. So you need to either clamp it or put something heavy up against it. And if you can do that, it will hold really well. This is really good for, say, large, thin, lightweight sheets of plywood. It's not nearly as good for big, heavy, cumbersome items that are going to be under strain all the time. But if you need something quick, this will work. You need to make sure that the surface is dry And most importantly, it's sturdy. So if it's old concrete that's flaking away all the time, this is not going to work with that at all. And you want to make sure that all that, if you've got it clean and back to something sturdy and secure, all that old dust, dirt, debris, loose gravel, anything that comes out of concrete, make sure it's all cleaned away before you even attempt to glue that with it. But if you got a caulking gun, go buy yourself, I think it's like $8 or $9 a tube up here in Canada. Pick yourself up one of them. That's the cheapest, fastest way to stick one thing to concrete. And it absolutely works. And literally, the only tool you need to use it, well, a knife or something to cut the tip off, and a caulking gun. And you're ready to stick your hand to your face, or a 2x4 or piece of plywood to a concrete wall or floor. So, what's my number two? Number two are Tapcon screws. And I love these guys. I'll have some up-close pictures for you too. These are really cool. Here, if you want to see them, what I like about them, see if they focus good. They're blue. They look like a regular screw, but they're hardened, and I spilled them. But basically, when you buy them, they normally come in a package. And like that. Included with it is a Tapcon bit, a concrete drilling bit that works really well. It's the exact size, so don't guess about what size you need. So how does this work? Again, so say you want to put a 2x4 to a wall or to a concrete floor. You pre-drill your holes in your concrete, then mark them on the concrete, lift it up, and then what you're going to need is a hammer drill to drill the holes with the concrete, the Tapcon bit, down into the concrete. Then you put these down through the wood and right into the floor, and they snug up beautifully. They're strong enough that they don't tend to twist off when they fetch up in there, and they have incredible holding power. What else do I like about them? They come in a couple different designs. These are really good for, say, putting thresholds down in concrete floor. They're your Phillips head. They're flush, so they suck in tight. And then there's also some, when the head isn't so important, is a nut driver head. Or I think it'll even take a slot screwdriver, which I don't know why you would do that. But if you want to drive them in quick and fast, use the nut driver style ones. A lot of different thicknesses, a lot of different lengths, and they'll basically, you can put 3/4 inch plywood down. I've done that before, or you can put a 2x4, 2x6 to a wall for a railing, that sort of thing. But yeah, what are you going to need for these? Basically a hammer drill, and that's about it, and it'll work. So it costs a little more. These aren't real expensive when you buy them. Buy them in a bulk pack because they're nice to have, although you end up needing to buy different sizes, different lengths, and that sort of thing. But just make sure that they come with the bit inside, and be gentle with them because they're not the best bits in the world. You can buy replacements, but they end up costing you a fair bit. You're usually better off to go buy another kit and have the throwaway bit and save your screws for another application. So like I said, they are pretty sturdy. They don't tend to snap off too often, but if I've over torqued a few, I've ended up having a couple that have that end up getting down in there. And if you haven't drilled the hole far enough, you can end up twisting it off. But what I like about these is if you have a certain depth you need to get to, you can know, hey, I drilled the hole 3/4 of an inch deep or 1.25 inches deep, and that's exactly what I need, and that's as far in as it is. With the Ramset, you don't always know, well, we'll talk about that a little bit afterwards, but these are really good for gauging the exact depth you want to go into the concrete. And I like that for it. Now, number 3, and that is the Ramset. And this is the most fun one. This is the most expensive to get set up, but it's still not that bad. Everything involves buying hardware. So first off, I'll show you these nice strong concrete nails they come with. So these are a nice heavy duty iron nail like that. They have a little plastic spacer on them right there. And basically they fit in the end of the Ramset. We'll show you. So the upfront cost is one of these guys, a Ramset gun. So this one, you load everything in and you hit it with a hammer. It's the cheap one. 20, 30 bucks you can get it. They also have one with a pull trigger that in Canada at least, they're well over 100 bucks. They're really nice, but this works this is good. Gives you a nice wide hold there, and you hit right in there with the hammer and it fires. So the nail goes in here. You just center it right in there. That plastic helps center it just like that. And then you have to buy these blank 22 shells. If I can open them to show you, right there. That's what they look like. Basically the shell without the projectile at the end. And then that guy goes in here, and then you close the whole thing up, hold it down, and hit it with a hammer. It's a lot of fun. But you need ear protection first, eye protection as well, because shit goes sideways when you're using it. But it is fast, so fast. You can, as fast as you can load it, you can hit it and put it down. Like I can probably have an entire 2x4 done, mounted to a wall with a ram set in the time it takes me to drill out and mount one Tapcon screw. Now, what are the downsides? Well, number one, if you're working in an area where you can't make a lot of noise, you probably don't want to use the ram set. Number two, if you're going into old concrete, or if you need to, say, mount to the top of a concrete block where it's kind of thin, this doesn't work. You try to do it, and all it does is split out the sides, or it breaks the old, cheap, that old kind of rotten concrete. It doesn't hold well with those. But sometimes with this, you can drill in far enough to get into it. And if I've had to mount into the top of a concrete block before, I've been able to drill down the center with a Tapcon, or a cement drilling bit, and then screw in with a Tapcon screw. But these are fun, these are fast. The fasteners are the least expensive of the batch. You can buy them in boxes of 100, or you can buy them individually. Then there's 4 different colors. There's green, black, yellow. I can't remember the other one, sorry. Anyway, so what's really cool about this is the only fastener that'll also fasten to iron or steel. So depending on how strong of a charge you use can use it into old concrete, new concrete, steel reinforced concrete, cinder blocks, and some steel and iron. I haven't used it for that before, but I've been told it works really, really well. So if you're looking for kind of a long-term, faster solution, I really like the ram set. And they all have their different applications. These aren't going to twist off when they go in, but you really don't know how well it's going to go in until you hit it. At least when you drill with the Tapcon, you know, hey, I've got that hole all the way down, that's going to go in. With this, if it hits the wrong thing, it's going to bend over, and then you got to try to pull it back out or finish driving it by hand, which I've done before with a hammer. It is doable, but it's a pain in the ass. So yeah, that's why I like to keep a bunch of different solutions around. So if there's something that I missed, or because there's other ones that I don't use on a regular basis, like the lead anchors. I don't know if they're still called lead, but the lead anchors that you can mount a lag bolt into, or the wedge anchors that you put down in, tighten up, and they spread out. A lot of people use them for mounting heavy equipment to concrete. So if there's something I missed, throw it in the comments below, and I'll share your recommendations on social media, because these are the ones I have the experience with. These are the ones I keep in my shop. And I hope they give you a little, a help this week. If there's something you needed to mount to concrete, you can use it. All right, guys, like I said, if you're new here and you want to stick around, hit the subscribe button and introduce yourself to the community in the comments below. And if you want to know more about me, right there, toolmantim.co. That's it for me this week. Thanks for dropping by the workshop. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop, where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. Tuesday morning, which means it's time for another Toolbox Tuesday, where I like to spotlight to you some everyday items, some tools, some accessories that I use, that I have tested out, that I really, really enjoy, and that I thought I could review and share with you guys. And this week's none the exception. If you saw my video about a month ago about making money assembling IKEA furniture, I talked about this right here. It's an impact Allen key adapter set. And it was something I did quite a bit of digging for. I'll tell you the story later on. But this thing has become absolutely indispensable. I use it all the time. So in a minute, I'm going to tell you all about this 11-piece metric impact Allen key set. All right, guys, real quick before we dive into the review, I just want to let you know, if you don't know who I am, go by toolmantim.co to find out all there is to know about me. Add me on the social media links. We can interact there. Subscribe to the monthly newsletter. Check out the weekly podcast. And most importantly, check out the shop, where I've got 100 links to products on Amazon of stuff I've used that meet the Toolman Tim seal of approval. Stuff that's either made me money or saved me money in my handyman business, and things that solve problems. Got a whole bunch of categories over there. We got hand tools, we got preparedness items, household items, cordless landscaping gear, whole bunch of different stuff. So if you want to know things that I use, that I like, that I've reviewed, check out toolmantim.shop. All right, guys. So like I said, if you watched my video maybe a month, 6 weeks ago about making money putting together IKEA furniture, I think I might even shared a bit of that story where, I have a need, I have a frustration, and I decide it's time to go dig and find a solution to that problem. something that'll probably end up in the shop eventually. And so I thought, you know what I need? Because, okay, if you guys ever put together IKEA furniture and they come with them tiny little Chinese-made Allen keys that are no good for nothing, you can't get any purchase on them, they strip out after about 4 uses, they're absolutely useless. Now, I like to put all my IKEA furniture together with either a small cordless drill or my impact. You might say, impact, Tim? If you're careful, it's okay. Now, when I put it together with that, if I want to use Allen keys in it, it's always a 2-piece process. I always needed the socket adapter, then the socket with the appropriate Allen key piece on it. And they're big, they're bulky, they're heavy in my bag, and so I decided it was time to go look for something that put it all together. So I put out to the Handyman Mastermind Facebook group and I asked, and there wasn't a lot of people. There was 2 recommendations. The first one was Mac Tools, and if you guys know Mac Tools, they're like a candy truck for kids, except that they overprice you, just like Snap-on tools and all that. Anyway, they had a set that had a bunch of these in it. It was like $200. I'm like, I'm not spending that kind of money yet. Probably never, actually. And then the other one said, check out these ones on Amazon. They're all, you know me and my Chinese branded stuff. They're all over the board with different names, but they're all designed the exact same way. So this is what you get. This one's called the Neiko. It's Neiko. This is the package it comes in right here. That's all there is to it. We'll open it up and show you what I've been using for the last little bit. And they're actually really nice. So there's 11 bits there, and they span the gamut from 1.5 millimeters up to 8 millimeters. And you might say, Tim, I don't need that metric junk. Well, number one, if you're going to put together IKEA furniture, you're going to need metric junk. And number two, they also come in standard imperial sizes. So if you're looking for one of them, I haven't picked one up yet because this is basically for putting together overseas made furniture, and pretty much everything comes with the metric style Allen key bolts. So have these worked for me? Oh, absolutely. I love these things. They're powder coated black. On the bottom, you're not going to be able to see this probably, but they have a laser printed size on it. So if you need to know, although normally just by looking it tells you, it's a nice, this kit, or I don't know, kit, holder, whatever, it's just this tiny little snug plastic thing. It's absolutely perfect. The minimalist design on this is awesome. It keeps all the bits together, and it goes into my drill bag, and it doesn't even take up that much real estate. As far as how well they fit, they say they're magnetic. They might be, but they're tight enough that when you put them into the Allen bolt, they just hold it. Like, it's better than almost any of my regular Robertson Phillips bits. This thing, they just fit in there and they work. And I've used a lot of them, and I've had to come on to some. I put some cribs together for my wife over at the daycare the other day, and a couple of them were used, and a couple of the old Allen keys were already stripped out a bit. And I come on to these, and I never managed to even come close to damaging them. And I've used pretty much all the way down to the second smallest one. I don't know when I'd ever use that really tiny one. But if you're looking for, well, the main reason I picked these up was so that I could eliminate needing to keep socket adapters and that big, heavy, bulky socket set. I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the big difference. This right here, this has, of course, metric and imperial in there, but those are heavy compared to that guy. And I still needed to keep an impact-ready socket adapter with that. So I basically replaced everything in there with this guy right here, and I've got one less point of failure. So now instead of having 2 connections in my impact drill, I only have one. And this thing was dirt cheap. It was well under 20 bucks, and I know in the States it's probably under $10 on Amazon at the time of shooting. Prices change, but either way, this is going to be inexpensive. 4.5 stars out of over 600 reviews on Amazon, and that's just from this Neiko brand. In Canada, this is about the only one available on Amazon.com, the United States version. There's probably 30 different companies making all this same thing. There's red ones, black ones, and silver ones. Pretty much any of them with this red style plastic holder and a powder coated paint finish, they're all going to be about the same. Now, I got to share one more quick story with you because this is funny. Years ago, I worked at an office supply store. Only worked there for about 6 months, and the guy I worked with, his name was Brian, and he trained me on putting together furniture. I always did a lot at the hardware store I worked at before that, and he showed me a really cool hack, and it worked quite well, and that's where I kind of got this idea from. So when he would get those cheap little Allen keys that would come with the non-pre-assembled furniture, the first thing he would do, he always kept a big I don't know, 18-inch or 24-inch pair of bolt cutters in the truck. And he would take that out, and he, you know how they're shaped like a candy cane, he would cut the candy cane piece off, and then he would take the full piece of Allen key, the long straight one, he'd put it down in his cordless drill and tighten it in. And he made his homemade Allen key adapters. And I thought, there's got to be something better. So that's where the old idea has always been. There's always a way. So if you're looking for a tip or a hack to make things a little bit faster for you, that's a way to do it as well. But these are way better. They're cleaner. You don't have to deal with those jagged edges, and you know you've got something that's going to last. So if you're looking for a cool little piece of kit that you want to throw in your drill bag, it doesn't take up a whole lot of real estate, and this damn thing works for the price of it, check out these Neiko 11-piece impact-rated Allen key adapters. I checked a lot of other stores and they didn't have them. So if you're looking for a good recommendation, this is absolutely it. All right, guys, that's it for me this week. Thanks for dropping by the workshop. You know I always enjoy it. And if you're new, hit the subscribe button. Stick around. I always appreciate it. Introduce yourself in the comments below. If you guys have other products you want me to recommend, or at least review and then let you know what my recommendation is, throw that in the comments as well. I always look for good recommendations from you guys. So that's it for me this week, guys. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Good morning, guys. Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we build business, create community, find freedom, and share success. It's Wednesday morning, which means it's time for another edition of our Tool Time Gear Reviews. And this week, I have got probably the single most often asked question that I get on social media. I've made posts about it. I've even included this as a throwaway comment in some of my videos before, but I figured it was absolutely time to share with you the one upgrade that you can do to your DEWALT cordless string trimmer that can take it from being a pretty good tool to being an incredible tool. I'm going to show you guys how to change the piece of factory head that comes with it and replace it with a top quality one that'll allow it to turn your machine into a beast. So hang in there, I'll be right back. Alright guys, real quick, if you want to know more about who I am, toolmantim.co. Just run by there, you'll see my social media links, the email newsletter, and the shop where I have lists of products I've used in my business or reviewed on this channel that will solve problems for you. Tons of different stuff, preparedness, hand tools, painting, the works. So run by there, check that out. You guys remember that old commercial, this is your brain on drugs? Well, I wanted to show you, first off, this is a brand new trimmer head from DEWALT. This is what comes from the factory. Looks pretty good. You wouldn't realize that it's almost made out of cardboard. Now, this is that same head after about 4 weeks of use, and not heavy use and not beaten and pounded on concrete. And that is not a factory design gap. That is where the plastic has completely worn through so you can see daylight. So the biggest complaint that I hear online and from other people all the time is I love the runtime, the power, the balance, the weight, everything about my DEWALT string trimmer except the piece of crap factory head that comes with it. So I started doing some experimenting last summer. I ran a still head on mine for the entire summer and part of this year. And so I thought it was time for me to share how friggin' simple it is to actually change out these heads and the heads that are compatible. So there's been a small change in the design of these DEWALT cordless string trimmers. There's two different types. This is the 20 volt that I use all the time. This is the one that most homeowners have, and it's an awesome rig. Works great. They both come with the same head, just like this. So there's a 20 volt, and then I've got my nice heavy duty beast of a 60 volt trimmer back here. Also works good, also comes with the same piece of crap head on it. So last year I ran a still auto cut 25 or 26.2. They're both basically the same. This is what it looks like. And I ran that on this guy all summer and it worked great. So I got a new one this year under warranty. They sent me a brand new one out. And I started filming this video and I was getting madder and madder and madder because this is supposed to be so simple to put these heads on there. Well, you know what they've done? They've gone, and I don't know if it was a cutback or what, but they made this bolt right here on the 20 volt a little bit shorter so that these auto cut heads don't fit anymore. They fit absolutely perfect over here. So here's a still auto cut 25.2 that I just installed. I will show you right there. I've been running it for a couple of weeks and it works great. This is a generic one. All the links will be in the description below. So I could not get the still head on the 20 volt trimmer anymore. So that's not an option, even though I've recommended that to a ton of people. So the only one that works really well now is the Husqvarna, I'll show you right there, T35. Works absolutely perfect. So let me show you how you take the old head off and how you put the new one on, and how quick you can be out there string trimming and not worrying about that piece of crap DEWALT head that wears out. Only tool you need is a roofing nail, okay? So I'm going to come in right here. You're going to see, let me just tighten this down a little bit more. Okay, so inside there, as I turn, you're going to see a little gap right there. See that? And what we need to do is line that gap up with this area right here. Okay, and then inside there you're going to just stick a nice long pointy nail like that, or a screwdriver. That's it. And then the one thing you got to remember when you do this with these heads is simply that, see if we can do this one-handed, everything is reverse thread. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey doesn't work in this instance. So to take it off, we're going to go righty-tighty, okay, just like that. And that's it. That might be the one thing that messes most people up. You're going to keep that in there so that it tightens down on itself. And now we're going to tighten it by going to the left. And guess what? We're friggin' done. That is all it takes to change the head out on these DEWALT string trimmers. That's it. Literally nothing else. So if you're looking for a high quality, much better designed, not going to fall all to pieces, like that guy in about 2 weeks, made by a top brand name, the Husqvarna T35 works great for the DEWALT 20 volt string trimmer. Absolutely perfect. I ran the heavier still last summer, all summer, and now I'm running the still T25 auto cut right there on my 60 volt. Exact same process to swap out, but all you need to use is a roofing nail. Back them off. Remember the reverse threads. Put the new one on, and then you can go to town. That's it. Look for the links in the description below. That's all there is to it. I wish there was more I could tell you about this video, but literally all you need is a roofing nail or a really thin screwdriver. Line that gap up, back it off, right to loosen, left to tighten, put your new one on, and Bob's your uncle. The still auto cuts work great on that. If you only want to stock one, the Husqvarna T35 will also work on that guy, but the still will not work on this one anymore. So the best head on the market is that, the Husqvarna T35. So I hope that helps, guys. I just want to tell you, I absolutely just love these DEWALT string trimmers, the cordless, the power, the runtime, the dual high and low switch, everything about it except for them damn heads. And if they'd improve that, they would take this from a 9-star to about an 11-star. You remember the old crank it up to 11? That's what we need to do with this. So I hope that helps, guys. That's it for me. If you have any suggestions or comments or questions about this process, throw it in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to know about that. And if you're new, introduce yourself to me and the community. Let us know in the comments below who you are, where you're from. Share your knowledge with us, because that's what we're here for. And as always, guys, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week. Thanks again, guys, for dropping by the weekly workshop. A new edition drops every week, so keep an eye out. And if you're looking for a solution to such problems as I spilled paint on vinyl siding, or I can't get this heavy picture to stay on the wall, stop by toolmantim.co and check out the Today's Tool section, where I share products and tools that have either made me money or saved me money personally or in my long-running year-round handyman business. And if you found value in this content, please take a moment and share it on your social platform of choice. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.